August 13, 2011. What began as a warm summer evening of music in Indianapolis would end in unthinkable chaos. Thousands gathered for a Sugarland concert at the Indiana State Fair, unaware that above them, disaster was brewing. Meteorologists had warned of severe winds, but organizers chose to continue the show, fearing backlash from disappointed fans. As the first notes of music echoed, a massive gust of wind ripped through the fairgrounds like a living creature. The roof of the temporary stage began to sway, its cables snapping one by one with metallic screams. Within seconds, the massive lighting rig came crashing down into the crowd, crushing everything beneath its weight. The sound of metal colliding with flesh drowned out the screams and music alike. Witnesses later said the collapse looked like the stage was being swallowed by the sky itself. 7 people were killed instantly. Dozens more lay trapped under twisted scaffolding and shattered lights. Rescue efforts were chaotic. Thunder still roared overhead as medics fought wind, rain, and panic. The stage structure had no full wind bracing. Investigators later called it a disaster waiting to happen. Survivors described feeling the wind lift them off their feet seconds before the crash. One fan, 23-year-old Jennifer Hedges, had been filming on her phone when the roof crushed her instantly. Her footage, later recovered, captured the final moments. Screaming, collapse, then silence. Investigators found the gusts had reached 60 miles per hour, enough to topple steel. Families of the victims stood where the stage once stood, staring at the flattened wreckage that had taken their loved ones. The concert that was supposed to bring joy became a haunting lesson in negligence and fate. Under the cracked fairground lights, only the twisted steel remained, silent witnesses to a night of horror. October 1, 2017. A warm desert night in Las Vegas, where music and joy were about to turn into terror. Over 22,000 country music fans packed the open-air grounds of the Route 91 Harvest Festival. At 10:05 p.m., the first pops echoed through the night, mistaken at first for firecrackers. Within seconds, the pops became a relentless storm of gunfire raining from the Mandalay Bay Hotel. The shooter had positioned himself 32 floors up, armed with high-powered rifles fitted with bump stocks. Bullets tore through the crowd, hitting bodies, shattering bones, ripping through tents and barriers. Screams drowned the music as people realized this wasn't fireworks. It was death from above. Some threw themselves over loved ones. Others crawled beneath bleachers and beer stands for cover. The gunfire continued for more than 10 minutes, 1,100 rounds of pure chaos. Medics and bystanders became instant heroes, using metal gates as makeshift stretchers. A nurse on vacation, a schoolteacher, a police officer, all rushed into the line of fire to save strangers. Bodies lay scattered between beer cups and cowboy hats, the ground painted in red. The music stopped, replaced by sirens, screams, and the thud of running feet across asphalt. Officers stormed the hotel, tracing the gunfire to the 32nd floor suite now silent and filled with smoke. The shooter was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot, surrounded by weapons and spent shells. 58 people were killed, hundreds injured, the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. The field where fans once danced became a silent memorial, haunted by echoes of music and screams. Even now, the sound of that night lingers, a reminder of how joy can collapse into horror in an instant. February 20, 2003. A small rock club in West Warwick filled with fans craving a loud night of music. The band Great White took the stage, and sparks burst from pyrotechnics behind the drummer. At first, the crowd cheered. They thought the fireworks were part of the show. But within seconds, flames raced up the foam-covered walls like serpents of fire. The sound of guitars turned into screams as the ceiling ignited, raining burning pieces of insulation. Panic rippled through the crowd as hundreds surged toward the narrow front door. Some tripped and fell, others were trapped beneath the stampede, gasping for air. Within 1 minute, the entire room became a furnace of toxic smoke and flame. Outside, survivors screamed names into the cold night, their faces lit by fire behind them. The band barely escaped through a side door, unaware of how many remained trapped inside. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but the inferno was already unstoppable. Some rescuers crawled inside, dragging motionless figures through burning debris. By dawn, the building was a blackened shell, a silent tomb of melted instruments and shoes. 100 people lost their lives that night, including the band's own guitarist. The fire's cause was traced to illegal pyrotechnics igniting flammable foam insulation. In the end, no sound of rock remained, only the hiss of smoke and the hum of sirens. The tragedy became a warning for every venue that safety can't be sacrificed for spectacle. What began as a night of music became one of America's most haunting fire scenes. A stage turned grave. August 13, 2011. A humid summer evening in Indianapolis, with crowds waiting for the band Sugarland. Thousands gathered near the grandstand stage, laughing, drinking, and filming the sunset sky. But dark clouds crept from the west, a silent warning that no one seemed to notice. Backstage, crew members discussed whether to delay the show as the wind began to howl. At 8:46 p.m., a sudden gust slammed into the metal stage structure like a giant unseen hand. Speakers swung on cables, banners tore apart, and the lighting rig began to sway ominously. The audience screamed as the massive roof began to twist and buckle above them. Within seconds, the entire stage came crashing down into the front rows of spectators. A wave of metal and canvas crushed people where they stood, pinning dozens beneath wreckage. Others tried to pull survivors free with bare hands as rain began to pour from the black sky. The storm howled louder, whipping through the wreckage like nature itself was enraged. Emergency lights flickered on, red, blue, and white strobing over soaked bodies and twisted steel. 7 people were killed, more than 40 injured, many trapped beneath the fallen stage roof. In the aftermath, investigators found the rigging hadn't been secured for such powerful winds. The fairgrounds fell silent, the carnival lights still blinking over empty seats. The stage, once a symbol of music and celebration, now looked like a twisted graveyard of steel. Families returned the next morning, leaving flowers and photos on the flattened ground. That night, joy turned to chaos in seconds, a reminder that even music can't drown the sound of disaster. November 5, 2021, thousands of fans flooded Houston's NRG Park for Travis Scott's long-awaited festival. The energy was wild. Tens of thousands pressed together, chanting, jumping, and roaring for the show to begin. As the lights dimmed, the crowd surged forward like a living wave, crushing everyone in its path. Bodies were squeezed so tight that lungs couldn't expand. People screamed, but the sound was swallowed by bass. Some tried to climb over barricades, their hands clawing at metal rails slick with sweat and panic. Security shouted for calm, but the noise drowned every warning, every cry for help. As the countdown ended, pyrotechnics exploded, and the crowd surged even harder. People began to collapse, one after another, falling into a pit of tangled limbs. Those on the ground were trapped, unable to move, gasping beneath hundreds of stomping feet. The music kept playing as paramedics fought through the sea of bodies, dragging unconscious fans away. Some tried CPR right in the dirt, their shaking arms silhouetted by strobe lights and smoke. Others begged camera operators to stop the show, but the music thundered on. 11 people were killed that night, crushed under the same beats they came to dance to. Hundreds more were injured, broken ribs, fainting, panic attacks, and the trauma of helplessness. The next morning, the field was empty, littered with shoes, bottles, and silent phones still recording. News helicopters hovered above the aftermath. A graveyard of joy turned tragedy. The city mourned as videos spread worldwide, showing the chaos in sickening detail. The festival promised a world beyond, and for some, it truly was their last show on Earth. July 24th. What began as a day of music and euphoria would end in one of the darkest festival tragedies ever. The electronic Pulse Fest was held in an old industrial lot, with a single tunnel serving as the main entrance. Tens of thousands arrived at once, pushing toward that single passageway. The air grew hot and thick. Music echoed faintly from the stage on the other side, just out of reach. People began to shout, wave, and panic as movement stopped completely. There was no way out. Security blocked both ends, fearing a rush toward the stage. The pressure from behind increased. Bodies pressed chest to back, shoulder to neck. Some climbed the tunnel walls, desperately trying to escape the human wave. Then came the screams. Muffled, chaotic, swallowed by concrete and fear. A young woman stumbled and fell. Instantly, she vanished beneath a sea of feet. Each second grew more fatal. People gasped, clawing for air that no longer existed. Oxygen ran out as more collapsed, their bodies forming a pile at the tunnel's center. Panic spread like wildfire. Those behind had no idea people ahead were already dying. By the time rescue teams forced their way in, the floor was littered with motionless silhouettes. 18 people were declared dead at the scene. Hundreds more were left injured or traumatized. The music outside never stopped. The stage kept glowing. The crowd kept dancing. News helicopters captured the chaos. A single choke point turned into a tomb. Pulsefest was meant to celebrate unity through music, but it ended in silence, beneath the sound.